Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huaxia Country, May 15, 2022, Shanghai Elf Academy, Entrance Examination Room. Dear students, there are still 15 minutes before the end of the exam. Students who have finished, please check the test paper carefully. After the broadcast in the classroom ended, a handsome man woke up from the table and wiped the saliva flowing from the corner of his mouth with his hand. Looking at the environment of the classroom and seeing the test paper in front of him, Zhang Rui was a little dazed and said in surprise, "Why am I here?" I remember playing games, but because Zhang Rui's voice was very loud, it disturbed the invigilator on the side. I saw the middle-aged woman with a fierce face, turned her head and looked at Zhang Rui, with a fierce look in her eyes. Maybe she thought that Zhang Rui had just woken up and couldn't distinguish reality, so she didn't care about him, but just glared at him and asked him to be a little honest. This made Zhang Rui's heart tremble. This woman is too scary. Zhang Rui, who was looking around, immediately lowered his head, looked at the test paper on the table, picked up the carbon pen on the table and prepared to answer the questions. Originally, I thought that it was just a question from the college entrance examination, so it should be easy to answer, but when I saw the first question, I was dumbfounded. Question 1. What are the characteristics of Bulbasaur? A. Fierce fire and solar power. B. Lush and chlorophyll. C. Torrent and rain disk. D. It has no characteristics. Seeing the first question, Zhang Rui had 100,000 questions in his mind. What is going on? This is definitely not a college entrance examination question, it is a question about Pokémon. Why would the school ask such a question? This made Zhang Rui confused. Did he travel through time? This is also what Zhang Rui could think of. At this moment, Zhang Rui suddenly felt a severe pain, and his head seemed to explode. Zhang Rui hurriedly covered his head with both hands, trying to reduce the pain. Just like that, after a minute, the pain slowly disappeared, and Zhang Rui felt that there were suddenly many more memories in his mind. After spending a few seconds to sort out some memories, Zhang Rui realized that he had really traveled through time. He actually traveled to the world of elves, which was simply unbelievable. I had dreamed of entering the world of elves many times, but I didn't expect it to succeed. In this world, elves and humans have lived together for tens of millions of years. Tens of millions of years ago, elves existed when humans were born. At the beginning, humans were still a little afraid of elves, hiding in caves every day and dared not go out. With the changes of the times, humans found that these elves were not only non-aggressive, but also liked to live with humans. Thousands of years later, elves have become an indispensable part of humans. At the same time, a wise man was born among humans. He made a Pokeball that could contain elves through round sweet fruits and some mixed trees. 100 years later, the profession of Pokemon trainer gradually appeared in the world. In the 21st century, human society has evolved from elves to a variety of professions. In addition to elf trainers, there are elf doctors, elf police, and archaeologists who specialize in studying ancient elves. Among them, elf trainers are still the main ones. A great elf trainer not only represents the family, but also represents the country. The exam that Zhang Rui took today is the elf qualification exam held by the college. Students who pass the exam can go to the college's exclusive breeding house to receive an elf egg that belongs to you. This is what the new students in the college have to do every year. Of course, every year, 2/3 of the students are eliminated and lose the qualification to receive elf eggs, and also lose the opportunity to enter the school to study. And Zhang Rui has not slept for 3 days and 3 nights just to pass the college's elf qualification assessment. It may be because of this reason that Zhang Rui lay on the table and never woke up again. The owner of this body is really so careless about his body. Zhang Rui complained in his heart. However, the characters in other people's novels have some system after crossing over, or they are given a powerful ring with an old grandfather living inside, but he has nothing here. Just as Zhang Rui was complaining, an electronically synthesized voice came from his mind, which made Zhang Rui happy. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for activating the elf copy system. The elf copy system, as expected, crossing over will definitely give you a system. Zhang Rui was ecstatic and said to the system, "System, do you have any powerful functions? For example, the kind that allows me to become a god directly?" "No, the elf copy system can provide a large number of copies for the host, allowing the host will be rewarded with a large amount of rewards after passing the challenge dungeon. You said that you can become a god directly. Our system does not advocate it and completely prohibits it. The system's words made Zhang Rui feel depressed. He originally wanted to become a god directly and enjoy a life surrounded by beautiful women here. Unexpectedly, in the end, he still had to rely on himself and work hard to improve, while the system only played a supporting role, since the host has just activated the system and is still a novice. This system will provide a novice gift package for the host. Please check it. As soon as the system finished speaking, a transparent data panel appeared in front of Zhang Rui. Zhang Rui hurriedly turned his head to see the reaction of his classmates in the classroom, and found that no one noticed this side, and they were still answering questions seriously. Now Zhang Rui was completely relieved. He thought that the system panel would be discovered by his classmates. But now it seems that he was overthinking. The classmates did not notice the existence of the panel at all. Let me see what good things the novice gift package gives. Zhang Rui happily clicked the warehouse button on the data panel, click on the newbie gift package and select the open button. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for opening the newbie gift package and obtaining the data eye and the small world. Data eye, you can see any data on the elves. Small world, the small world is closely related to the Pokeball, and you can teleport the captured Pokemon to the small world to live. I didn't expect that the newbie gift package would give so many things. Now I can't see what the small world looks like, but now I can at least use the data eye. Since you can see the data on the elves, is there any effect on the test paper? I saw Zhang Rui's eyes turn to the direction of the test paper again, and return to the position of the first question, and activated the data eye. The answer to the first question is B. The answer to the second question is C. Seeing all the answers displayed, Zhang Rui's mouth corners slightly raised, but he couldn't hide the smile in his heart. Coincidentally, he was discovered by the invigilator sitting at the front desk, and he couldn't help but feel a little confused. Why is this kid grinning foolishly? If I remember correctly, this kid is the worst student in the room. He is ignorant all day long. If his father hadn't spent money, he might not have had the chance to come here to take the exam. He is still grinning foolishly. It's really sad for his parents to have such a child. Zhang Rui, who was preparing to do the questions, had no idea what the invigilator was thinking. He started writing quickly with the carbon pen in his hand. He wrote almost as soon as he saw the question, as if there was a standard answer in front of him, without thinking at all. The invigilator was stunned at this time. How could this kid suddenly write so fast? On second thought, this kid was so bad at studying, and the answers were probably all written randomly. Thinking of this, the invigilator didn't pay attention to it anymore until the bell rang. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the moment when the exam was over, Zhang Rui finally finished filling in the test paper. He relaxed as he had been filling in the answers just now, which made him tense. At this moment, the invigilator on the stage stood up quickly. He collected all the papers at lightning speed, and when he came to Zhang Rui's side, he saw the dense fonts on his paper. With a slight smile, if you look closely, you can see that the invigilator's face was not a smile of relief, but a mocking sneer. For Zhang Rui's answer sheet, she would only think that Zhang Rui filled it in randomly and didn't care at all. After collecting all the papers, she left the examination room. Before leaving, she said to the candidates on the field, after the results come out tomorrow, you will be able to receive the elf eggs. Rest well today and prepare for receiving the elf eggs tomorrow. As soon as the invigilator left, the students in the examination room seemed to have completed their mission. He put away all the tools on the table and ran out of the examination room. Of course, this was only a minority. Most of the candidates were sad and worried. Obviously, they did not have much confidence in their test scores. Zhang Rui on the table left the examination room after sorting out all his memories. Along the way, although many candidates were discussing today's exam, Zhang Rui was thinking about why he came to the elf world. He only remembered that he was still staying up late to play the game of Pokémon the night before. He was so engrossed in the game that he had forgotten the time. He only needed to solve the Rainbow Rocket team to pass the level. When he was about to solve the boss of the Rainbow Rocket team, Osaka, he suddenly found that his eyes were black and then he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he came to this world full of elves. Did he die suddenly because he stayed up too late? Oh my God! I didn't sleep for 3 days and died suddenly. It seems that I still lack exercise. However, Zhang Rui did not regret it. After all, he really loves elves. Maybe God gave him a chance to realize his dream. This is why Zhang Rui came to a world full of elves and gave him a powerful copy system, giving him the opportunity to become a champion. However, Zhang Rui has such a powerful system, but he just wants to become a champion. It's too small. Since I came to this world, I should conquer the beasts in this world and become an existence admired by people all over the world. However, let's get the first elf first. Just as I walked out of the school gate of the academy, I was stopped by a familiar voice. Brother Rui, how did you do in the exam? Zhang Rui was very familiar with this voice. This person was Zhang Rui's playmate since childhood, Yi Fei. Yi Fei was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt and a pair of shorts that reached the middle of his thighs. Zhang Rui was not fooled by his handsome appearance, but looked at the knocking monkey sitting on his shoulder. Of course, your brother Rui is here, and 1 is better than 2. However, how did you get this knocking monkey? Aren't the test results not out yet? Hearing Zhang Rui's question, Yi Fei patted his chest and said. Don't forget what my family does. I don't have to take this kind of test at all. My elf family has prepared it for me. How is it? My knocking monkey is handsome. This is a very famous starter Pokémon, and you may not be able to buy it even if you spend hundreds of thousands. Really, if Yi Fei didn't say it, Zhang Rui almost forgot that his family is not an ordinary family. His father is the director of the Pokémon Police Department, and his mother is naturally not an ordinary person. She is a well-known Pokémon breeder who once made platinum-level energy cubes, which are very popular among trainers. P.S. The quality of the energy cube, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. Indeed, with such parents, there is no need to take the test to receive the elf egg, their family will directly buy him an elf. Thinking of this, Zhang Rui couldn't help but sigh, it's so good to be rich. Thinking of his family, his father is just an ordinary office worker, and his mother is just an ordinary housewife. This gap is indeed very large. Then, Zhang Rui opened the data eye and checked the attributes of the knocking monkey in front of him. Name, knocking monkey. Attributes, fuck. Level, LV6. Quality, C+. Gender, male. Status, happy. Features, grassmaker. Carried items, none. Inherited moves. High 5 surprise attack. Basic skills, grab, call, wooden needle thrust. Taught skills, none. Skill secrets, none. Your knocking monkey is worth training, not bad. After passing through the data eye, Zhang Rui stroked his chin and commented on the knocking monkey in front of him. Zhang Rui's words obviously excited Yi Fei. He touched the knocking monkey's head and said excitedly, of course, this is carefully selected by me, and its strength is very strong. After you get the elves, let's have a fight and let you see the strength of the knocking monkey. Zhang Rui nodded, and then chatted with Yi Fei for a while, and then said goodbye to each other, and Zhang Rui returned home in the direction indicated by his memory. He also encountered many elves on the way. Although Zhang Rui wanted to subdue them, he didn't have a pokeball in his hand, so he couldn't subdue them at all. As soon as he got home, he saw Zhang's father kneeling on the washboard. It seemed that he had offended Zhang's mother again. Judging from his painful appearance, he had probably been kneeling for an hour. When Zhang's father saw Zhang Rui, he immediately ran over, hugged Zhang Rui directly, and said excitedly, "Son, if you don't come back, you won't be able to see your dad again. I asked you to kneel there for 2 hours, why is it so difficult?" A middle-aged woman holding a soup spoon came from the kitchen and saw that Zhang's father had disappeared, so she came over and scolded him. As soon as I walked out of the kitchen, I saw Zhang's mother holding Zhang Rui, and her originally irritable temper immediately became gentle. It turns out that Rui is back. Come and eat quickly. I made a table full of dishes to celebrate your success in the exam today. Seeing that Zhang's mother's temper became much gentler, Zhang's father breathed a sigh of relief. Just now I stole a chicken nugget, and you made me kneel on the washboard for 2 hours. It's simply cruel. Indeed, it's a bit serious. Zhang Rui nodded and replied. Why don't you two come and eat quickly? Zhang's mother's voice came from the kitchen again. This time, neither of them dared to stay for a minute longer and quickly walked to the kitchen. Zhang Rui was actually very uncomfortable during this dinner, mainly because his father and mother kept asking him about his exam results. Although Zhang Rui said that there was absolutely no problem, his father and mother still looked at him in doubt. Zhang Rui had no choice but to return to his room after eating and drinking, lying on the comfortable big bed, thinking about receiving the elf egg tomorrow. He was somewhat looking forward to it, however, he had the magical ability of the data eye, so there should be no problem in choosing the elf egg tomorrow. Then, he closed his eyes and slowly fell asleep. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shanghai City, the next day, at this time, Zhang Rui was still dreaming, drooling from the corners of his mouth, and even the cat belly pillow was soaked. Bang dong! Zhang Ma broke into the room directly, and the sound woke Zhang Rui up from his sleep immediately. He immediately stood up, quickly covered his body with a silk quilt, and said to Zhang Ma. Mom, why didn't you knock when you came in? I almost let you see me naked. After hearing Zhang Rui's words, Zhang Ma ignored him and said with her hands on her hips. What do you mean you saw me naked? You are my son, and I don't know how many times I have seen your body. You actually started to dislike me, your mother, and I raised you so big. Zhang Ma looked at Zhang Rui covering himself again and said with disdain. Okay, get up quickly. Today is the time to get the elf eggs. Your father and I can't wait. Remember to hurry up. Your father and I are waiting for you outside. As soon as Zhang's mother finished speaking, she swung her hand and closed the door. Zhang Rui watched Zhang's mother leave on the bed, confirmed that Zhang's mother had left, and sighed. It doesn't matter when to get the elf eggs. There is no time limit anyway. However, since he had already woken up, Zhang Rui was no longer sleepy, so he got up, dressed, washed a little, and ran out without even eating breakfast. At this time, Zhang's father and mother outside the door were already waiting anxiously. They were still thinking about going into the house to call Zhang Rui, but they saw Zhang Rui coming out of the house. As soon as he walked out of the door, he saw Zhang's mother stamping her feet. It was obvious that Zhang's mother didn't like waiting, so she scolded Zhang Rui, You. How can you pick a good elf egg at such a slow speed? After hearing Zhang's mother's scolding, Zhang Rui scratched the back of his head embarrassedly, and then drove to the Mountain and Sea Elf Academy with his family. Soon, the three of them arrived at the Mountain and Sea Elf Academy. As soon as the three of them got off the car, they saw that the entrance of the academy was almost crowded with people, and it was impossible to get in. Of course, some students were holding an elf egg in their arms, and their hearts were full of joy. Name, Green Caterpillar. Attribute, Bug. Level, LV0. Quality, D-. Gender, Male. Status, Unhatched. Features, Airlock. Carrying props, None. Inherited moves, None. Basic skills, Impact. Spitting Silk. Teaching skills, None. Skill secrets, None. Is a green caterpillar so happy? Do you still hope that it will evolve into Rayquaza in the future? Zhang Rui just took a look and ignored it, then squeezed into the crowd to check his grades first. Although he thought that there was absolutely no problem with his grades, it would be troublesome if something unexpected happened. Just as Zhang Rui was about to walk to the score list, he was suddenly stopped by a familiar voice. Isn't this Zhang Rui? I didn't expect you to appear here. I thought you had already gone to work. Zhang Rui hurriedly turned his head to look at the source of the voice, and found that not far away from him, a man with acne marks on his face was standing there. Zhang Rui was very familiar with the man in the distance, and it can even be said that he had a deep memory of him. When Zhang Rui was still in high school, the man in front of him would target Zhang Rui as long as he found an opportunity, and would even try his best to humiliate him. This also made Zhang Rui have no intention of studying at all, and sometimes he was even afraid to go to school. Originally thought that after entering the academy, the two should not have any intersection, but unexpectedly, the two would meet again. Go Dan, I didn't expect to see you here. Zhang Rui quickly became alert to Go Dan. Although he is no longer the same person he was in high school, he can't help but feel scared when he sees him. Yes, this is the fear in his heart. Just then, Zhang Rui felt someone pat his shoulder and turned to look. It turned out to be Zhang's father. Zhang's father smiled at Zhang Rui with a calm look in his eyes, asking Zhang Rui to relax a little. Zhang Rui's pupils trembled slightly. Indeed, he was not the original Zhang Rui. Zhang Rui didn't need to pay attention to the person in front of him. Zhang's father saw Zhang Rui relieved, so he turned his head to look at Go Dan in the distance. Go Dan in the distance saw Zhang Rui's mood relaxed, and the fear in his eyes disappeared. Why is this guy different from high school? However, even if you are no longer afraid of me, the fear hidden deep in your heart will definitely still exist. Go Dan thought to himself, and walked in front of Zhang Rui and said to Zhang Rui proudly. I got 61 points in this exam, which means I have the chance to receive the elf egg. And you, since high school, have been a poor student at the bottom of the class, and still want to become a Pokémon trainer. This is simply wishful thinking. While talking, Go Dan came to Zhang Rui's ear and said to him, you are a waste. Haha, Go Dan said, and then lined up to receive the Pokémon eggs. At this time, Zhang Rui's eyes kept trembling, his fists clenched, and he wanted to swallow Go Dan in one gulp. He secretly said in his heart, one day, I will make you kneel on the ground and sing Conquer. I want to get back all the shame of 3 years. At this time, Zhang's mother was already checking the score list. Although the students around her were squeezing and making it difficult for her to keep steady, she could still roughly see the scores on the score list. Originally, she started from the bottom. After all, they all knew Zhang Rui's score, and it was impossible for him to do very well, but she didn't see Zhang Rui's name even after searching from the bottom to the top. Originally, she thought Zhang Rui must have failed the exam and didn't appear on the list at all. Just when Zhang's mother was feeling depressed and wanted to leave the crowd, a girl in the crowd suddenly exclaimed. Why didn't I get the first place in the exam? I studied hard. But who is this Zhang Rui? Why haven't I heard of him? Mother Zhang was shocked when she heard the girl's voice suddenly, but she immediately denied it. Knowing him, her son would never get such an amazing score. This is the first place. How could Zhang Rui get such a good score? Even if their ancestral graves were smoking, it would be impossible, but just in case, Mother Zhang still went to take a look at the list. Sure enough, she saw Zhang Rui's name at the top of the score list. In order to prevent duplicate names, she looked at the ID card behind. When she compared the last one, Mother Zhang exclaimed. How is this possible? Because Zhang's mother's voice was very loud, the students around cast strange looks at her, but after a glance, they went back to look at the score list. Zhang Rui and Zhang's father heard Zhang's mother's voice in the distance, and they were shocked and ran over quickly. After hearing Zhang's mother's answer, Zhang's father also showed an unbelievable look. He and his son have lived together for 16 years, and he even knows how many hairs he has on his body. However, this time, he felt that he was gradually alienated and even unfamiliar with his son. In general, Zhang Rui was able to get the first place in the exam, and the whole family should be happy, because this indicates that there will be a Pokémon trainer in the family, or even a champion. Now that the results have been confirmed, they should line up and prepare to receive the Pokémon eggs. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the Mountain and Sea Elf Academy, Zhang Rui has already lined up in a long queue, and Zhang's father and mother, who don't need to collect elf eggs, have gone to the counter in front to watch others collect elf eggs. However, it is so crowded in front that it is probably difficult to squeeze in. Since queuing seems a bit boring, Zhang Rui took out his mobile phone to watch the real-time news and learn more about this world. This mobile phone is still Zhang Rui's old mobile phone that he has used for 3 years. There has been no signal for a long time, but just now, the mobile phone suddenly has a signal, and he can play with the mobile phone. The tools in this world are actually not much different from those in the original world. The only difference is the elves. The way to generate electricity in the power plant in the original world is to burn coal, while in this world, electric elves are needed to generate electricity. However, this also made Zhang Rui think of the lightning bird hidden in the power plant. I wonder if I can meet it in the future. Great news! Chinese champion Reina encountered Emperor Yan in Phoenix Forest, and after fighting with Emperor Yan, she almost conquered him. Amazing news, someone saw a mysterious passage above Shanghai Forest, but it disappeared in an instant. Is there any new species invading? Then, Zhang Rui opened the picture of the sky above Shanghai Forest, and his pupils shrank slightly. Looking at the black hole-like mesh stripes in the picture, Zhang Rui was very familiar with it. Isn't this the ultimate cave? Zhang Rui exclaimed. Zhang Rui was very familiar with the ultimate cave. This is the passage for the ultimate beasts in the other world to successfully enter the elf world. Legend has it that as long as the ultimate cave is opened, an ultimate beast equivalent to a level 2 god will fly out of space, but because the beasts look weird and have huge differences in temperament, they are also listed as the most dangerous elves by the country. However, the ultimate cave has not been opened for hundreds of years. Zhang Rui thinks that it may not be a good thing that it suddenly opened this time, although Zhang Rui couldn't suppress his curiosity and wanted to go to the mountain and sea forest to check it out. He didn't have any elves. In this world, it is really difficult to move without elves. Even when the beast tide occurs, ordinary people can only rely on the help of the Elf Alliance and the Elf Guard, but they can't do anything. Sometimes, the Alliance no longer cares about the safety of the people for its own safety and abandons the people directly. In other words, this world seems beautiful, but in fact it is also undercurrents, and people without ability may die because of it. This is also one of the reasons why elf trainers are so important in this world, and it is also one of the reasons why many people want to become trainers, but Zhang Rui is not very worried about these. After all, he is about to get the elf egg. As long as the elf is hatched, plus the assistance of the system, then ordinary elf trainers will definitely not be able to do anything to Zhang Rui. Time passed bit by bit, the line in front gradually became shorter, and Zhang Rui's mood became more excited. After the students in front of Zhang Rui finished choosing the elf eggs, it was finally Zhang Rui's turn to choose. In the huge breeding house, there was an old man in his 60s, and an elderly woman beside him. When the two saw Zhang Rui, they smiled gently, which calmed their originally excited mood. "Little classmate, what's your name?" The old man looked at Zhang Rui in front of him and asked. Zhang Rui. After Zhang Rui finished speaking, the old man took out a list, and then took out something like a magnifying glass and began to search on the list. Maybe because Zhang Rui was ahead, the old man found him directly in the first place. But after seeing Zhang Rui's score, the old man was also stunned. Because he has been in this business for many years, he has not seen a student with full marks, but Zhang Rui's results shocked him and made him feel a little happy. He said with a look of surprise. "You are Zhang Rui, who ranks first." It doesn't matter if the old man doesn't say it, but when the old man speaks, everyone behind Zhang Rui casts envious eyes on Zhang Rui. So he is Zhang Rui who ranks first. He is so amazing. That's right. He can get first place in such a difficult question. I admire him a little bit. But he is so handsome. I want to give birth to a baby for him. Of course, there is praise and jealousy. Isn't it just first place? No matter how many points you get, as long as you pass. The final comparison is how powerful the elves you get are. In previous years, there were many people who had high test scores but hatched a Magikarp. After hearing the man's words, everyone nodded. Indeed, in this world, the strength of the elves determines the strength of the elves, everything. So, the envy of the crowd slowly dissipated, and became as calm as before. Zhang Rui ignored what they said from the beginning. After all, he was a cheater, which was understandable to you ordinary people. After confirming that the results were correct, the old man opened a small wooden door in front of Zhang Rui and let Zhang Rui come in to choose. After Zhang Rui walked into the breeding house, he saw a large number of elf eggs placed on wooden shelves in front of him. After some of the elf eggs were selected by the students, the old lady would bring new elf eggs from the house inside and put them on the shelves. Zhang Rui looked at the shelf in front of him that was taller than himself. His eyes lit up, and he didn't know how to choose at all, because there were too many elf eggs. In order to satisfy his curiosity, Zhang Rui asked the old lady standing beside him. "Old lady, are all these Pokémon eggs obtained by you through Pokémon mating?" The old lady shook her head and said gently, "No, the Pokémon eggs obtained by the mating of Pokémon will not appear here, and the Pokémon eggs in front of us are all picked up from the forest or obtained by some trainers of the Alliance and Association by defeating Pokémon." Even we don't know what is in these Pokémon eggs, it all depends on your students to perceive. Use your senses to find them. After hearing the old lady's answer, Zhang Rui also nodded and agreed. Indeed, those Pokémon eggs obtained by mating are still in short supply among their own people. Who would contribute Pokémon eggs to let these unknown students choose? Maybe only fools would do so, but it is precisely because of this that the data eye has a role to play. Zhang Rui first came to the first row of shelves and viewed the Pokémon data through the data eye. Ugly, Magikarp, ugly, Caterpillar, Pidgeot. After looking at the first row, Zhang Rui said helplessly in his heart. Why are there only the most common Pokémons? Are there no starter Pokémons? Helplessly, Zhang Rui started looking from the second row again. The students behind him couldn't wait to urge Zhang Rui to dawdle, but were stopped by the old man. When choosing Pokémon eggs, one should keep quiet. Under everyone's gaze, Zhang Rui continued to use the data eye to look at Pokémon eggs: Chewfish, Spearow, Gasbomb, Arbok, Piku, Charmander, and so on. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Zhang Rui saw the Charmander egg, he froze there immediately. He was extremely excited. He finally saw a starter Pokémon among so many eggs. He was so excited, just when Zhang Rui wanted to pick up the egg and take it away, his eyes suddenly looked at the top shelf, and his pupils shrank. Baby Dragon. Looking at the baby dragon egg on the shelf, Zhang Rui's heart was like a wave stirring up thousands of waves. This damn luck, it turned out to be a quasi-god. Yes, it turned out to be a quasi-god. This is a quasi-god Pokémon that can evolve into a Dragonite. Zhang Rui is still very clear about quasi-god Pokémon. Those Pokémon whose racial values can be comparable to those of a level 2 god are called quasi-gods. If a quasi-god appears in a place, it will definitely attract a large number of trainers to go there. Some will even dig 3 feet into the ground just to find a quasi-god level Pokémon. This is mainly because quasi-gods are so rare that they can be said to be rare. Zhang Rui read in a news article that a Pokémon egg laid by a Dragonite could be sold at a high price of tens of millions, and some people would even pay 100 million to compete for it. Just think about it. How many of the 3 great Pokémons can be bought with 100 million? This also shows how rare the existence of quasi-gods is. Seeing the Pokémon egg of the Dragonite, Zhang Rui decisively put the Charmander egg back, walked up the stairs next to the shelf, and picked up the Pokémon egg. Little classmate, do you want to choose this egg? I advise you to choose something else. Look at the surface of this egg, it is already damaged, which will affect the qualifications of the Pokémon. The old woman kindly advised Zhang Rui when she saw him holding the Pokémon egg. After Zhang Rui approached and took a look, he realized that it was no wonder that no one chose this quasi-god egg, because this egg was damaged, which would affect the qualifications of the Pokémon. After all, the qualifications of the Pokémon can be said to be crucial, and can even be linked to the level. P.S. The qualifications of the elves are from low to high, namely E, D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSR. The higher the qualifications, the higher the skills that can be comprehended and the level of breakthrough. For example, a green caterpillar with SS quality can also be sold for tens of millions. It is because it has SS level quality that it can learn more skills from it. But Zhang Rui did not choose to give up because the elf egg was damaged. This is a quasi-god egg. Although the qualifications are low, it is stronger than those ordinary elves. Besides, as long as it is well cultivated and cared for in the future, the qualifications may improve. Zhang Rui shook his head at the old woman and said, I will choose this egg. Because according to my sixth sense, this egg is my natal elf. After hearing this, the old woman narrowed her eyes and shook her head helplessly. She really didn't want the top student ranked first to choose this defective elf egg, but since it was Zhang Rui's choice, she couldn't stop it. After asking the grandfather to register Zhang Rui, he brought out the container and culture fluid for hatching elves from the house. Soaking elf eggs in culture fluid can speed up the hatching time. Here, kid, this is the culture fluid and the container with elf eggs, and there is a elf ball on the container. When the elf hatches, you just need to capture it. After Zhang Rui took the container, he nodded to the old woman, then he squatted down and put the baby dragon egg in the container, poured in the culture fluid, and got up and left. Zhang's father and mother naturally knew that Zhang Rui chose a defective elf egg, but they didn't say anything. For their own children, they pay more attention to the children's own choices, but those classmates were different. When they saw Zhang Rui choosing a defective elf egg, they covered their mouths and laughed secretly. What first place? I think he's an idiot. With so many excellent elf eggs, he didn't want them, but he was obsessed with that defective elf egg. I guess I've become stupid from studying, haha. Zhang Rui couldn't hear these people's discussion, because he had already left with Zhang's father and Zhang's mother. The old woman brought a new elf egg and placed it in the place of the baby dragon, letting other students choose. Zhang Rui got in Zhang's father's car and returned home quickly. As soon as he got home, he rushed to his room at full speed. Zhang's father and Zhang's mother looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Then they went about their own business. When Zhang Rui returned to the house, he was as happy as a baby and put the baby dragon egg on the table. He took out the elf egg hatching manual given by the old woman and flipped through it. After reading it for a few minutes, he threw it aside. What is said here is not as good as what he knows. It's completely useless, since the elf egg will take some time to hatch. Zhang Rui naturally did not sit idle and began to prepare for the baby dragon. First of all, the preparation is naturally Pokémon food. You can't just starve to death because there is no food when you are born. The food that Pokémon eat in this world is Pokémon food specially prepared by Pokémon breeders, and energy cubes prepared by breeders. This is made from a mixture of different kinds of tree fruits. Compared with Pokémon food, Pokémon prefer to eat energy cubes. Moreover, energy cubes have a wider range of uses. Not only can they replenish Pokémon's energy, but they can also improve Pokémon's qualifications. The most important thing is that they are easy to carry. It's perfect for trainers who travel. Zhang Rui chose to go to the Pokémon store tomorrow to buy some energy cubes. Compared with Pokémon food, Zhang Rui focuses more on energy cubes. After deciding to buy energy cubes, Zhang Rui took out the pocket money he had saved for many years. After a careful check, he found that he was so poor, the property on his body was only 500 Pokémon coins. This is too poor. It is estimated that these can only buy 1 or 2 energy cubes. It is really difficult for poor people to turn over. Just when Zhang Rui was worried, he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Come in. Dad Zhang glanced at Zhang Rui and walked into the house. Compared with Zhang's mother's barbarity, Dad Zhang was more gentle. Rui, I came here just to ask you something. Dad Zhang said, flattening the wrinkled quilt and sitting down. Do you really want to be a Pokémon trainer? Of course, I will definitely become the most powerful trainer. After hearing what Dad Zhang said, Zhang Rui spoke without thinking. After hearing Zhang Rui's answer, he looked at Zhang Rui's expression full of determination, nodded, took out a Pokémon bank card from his pocket and said, there are 30,000 in this card, take it. Zhang Rui hurriedly refused. Zhang Rui was very familiar with his family background. His parents work so hard every day, and this money is all his parents' hard-earned money. Zhang Rui naturally cannot take it. Seeing Zhang Rui refuse, Zhang's father said, this card is specially prepared for you. Seeing that Zhang Rui did not accept it, Zhang's father changed his strategy. This card is equivalent to us lending it to you. Return it to us when you have money. After all, you need a lot of money to become a trainer. This time Zhang Rui did not refuse, but took the card back in his hand. Indeed, he needed funds very much now. When the baby dragon is born, due to congenital problems, a large number of energy cubes will be needed. Okay. When I make money, I will return it to you. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang's father looked at Zhang Rui's face, his eyes trembled slightly, he smiled with relief, and then stood up and left. After Zhang's father left, Zhang Rui began to plan for the special training of his baby dragon after it was born. He took out a brand new notebook and began to write down his special training plan on it. In this way, Zhang Rui stayed up late. The next morning, Zhang's mother thought that Zhang Rui had not eaten last night, so she made breakfast and brought it to him. As usual, she broke into the room and saw Zhang Rui lying on the table with the desk lamp on. When Zhang's mother saw this scene, she immediately understood that Zhang Rui must have not slept all night yesterday in order to quickly enhance the strength of the elf after it was born. Thinking of her son who worked so hard, Zhang's mother's originally calm beautiful eyes suddenly increased a little relief. Her son has finally grown up, so. She grabbed Zhang Rui's ear, pulled him up, and yelled, "Get up, you little brat, you didn't have dinner yesterday, this is breakfast, eat it while it's hot." Zhang Rui, who was originally dreaming, was suddenly woken up by Zhang's mother, and was a little confused. What was going on? At this time, Zhang's mother brought the millet porridge in her hand in front of Zhang Rui, and turned away. Zhang Rui, who was a little confused, saw the millet porridge in front of him, and felt a gurgling sound in his stomach, so he rubbed it with his hands. Since yesterday, he hasn't eaten well, and seeing the millet porridge in front of him, he felt hungry, so he picked up the soup spoon and ate happily. After eating, I looked at the special training plan that I stayed up late to make yesterday, and I couldn't help feeling proud. I am so amazing. Not only am I handsome, but the plan is also perfect. Looking at the schedule in his hand, he turned his head to look at the baby dragon egg on the bed. After the baby dragon is born, it can be implemented. I'm so looking forward to it. But at this time, the Pokémon egg seemed to shake. Baby dragon, trainer, be a man. After that, Zhang Rui set off for the Pokémon Trainer Association. Due to the uniqueness of energy cubes, only the Pokémon Trainer Association will buy them. There are almost no ordinary commercial streets. Even if there are, they are twice as high as the association. Soon, Zhang Rui came to the door of the Trainer Association. Looking at the tall door in front of him and the two Dragonite statues at the door, they look so lifelike. The Trainer Association is under the management of the Pokémon League. Some trainers who want to assess the qualifications of new trainers and buy some tree fruits or energy cubes will go to the Trainer Association for assessment or purchase. Zhang Rui clenched the card in his hand and walked into the Trainer Association. As soon as he entered the Trainer Association, he saw many trainers in the Trainer Association, but those trainers were followed by Pokémon. Some of them had Pidgeot on their shoulders, and some had Butterfree behind them, but they seemed to be accepting tasks. Indeed, the Trainer Association also has the function of accepting tasks. After all, after completing the task, you can get quite a lot of Pokémon coins and some extra rewards. However, there is a prerequisite, that is, you need a trainer qualification certificate, otherwise you can't accept it. Hello, what service do you need? Zhang Rui, who was watching the scene of the association, turned his head to look in the direction of the voice, and a beautiful woman appeared in front of him, wearing a red cheongsam, outlining the charming curves, of course, and the proud peaks. Obviously, the woman in front of her is a service staff of the Trainer Association. Generally, if a trainer has any questions, he will ask about the situation. When Zhang Rui looked at the cheongsam woman in front of him, he saw that her cheeks were actually slightly flushed, and Zhang Rui didn't care and asked, "Do you know where the elf shop is?" Faced with Zhang Rui's question, the woman in front of him came back to her senses instantly, stroked her hot cheeks with her hands, pointed to a shop in the distance, and said, "The elf shop is over there, just go there." Zhang Rui nodded and walked towards the elf shop. The cheongsam woman saw Zhang Rui leaving, but she still didn't forget to look at him a few more times. After all, Zhang Rui's appearance made her a little fascinated. With the cheongsam woman pointing the way, Zhang Rui quickly came to the door of the elf shop and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw that the shelves were full of energy cubes, and each one had a price and its use. Of course, there were also elf balls and items needed by elves. However, Zhang Rui's goal this time was to buy energy cubes, so he browsed in front of the shelf. It was found that the price of each energy cube was different, and the quality also increased from low to high, but the highest was only gold, platinum and diamond grades. I didn't see them at all, perhaps because of the special nature of platinum and diamond grades. If you want them, you can only order them from breeders. But the price is very expensive. Zhang Rui first selected a few energy cubes, and it turned out to cost 40,000. This price is simply too amazing, but buying only a few is not enough for Baby Dragon to take. There is no way, so he turned his eyes to the fruit area and looked at the price of the fruit. It is quite suitable, but if Baby Dragon only takes the fruit, the effect is still too poor. He looked at the ordinary energy cube making machine on the side. The price is still cheap, and it only costs 10,000. That's right, the energy cube is expensive mainly because of its production process. After all, when making it, the trainer needs to pay close attention to its production time and mixing degree. If you are not careful, the taste of the energy cube will change. After thinking for a while, Zhang Rui finally made up his mind. He wanted to buy an energy cube making machine and some fruit and take it home to make it himself. In the original world, Zhang Rui spent a whole day on the energy cube making machine in Shuijing City, and almost used up all the fruits he planted. Of course, he also made many different energy cubes. Zhang Rui believed that there would be no problem this time. He asked the service staff to pack for him, and then returned home to start making energy cubes. According to Zhang Rui's memory, cut the fruits that baby dragon liked into cubes, and then put them all into the energy cube making machine according to the proportion, then press the start button, and soon, the entire energy cube making machine started to work. At this time, Zhang Rui paid close attention to the time and mixing degree, and when it reached the level that Zhang Rui understood, he pressed the stop button. As soon as the machine stopped, a strong fragrance came. I didn't expect that the first production would be successful. I am really a genius. Name, Physical Attack Cube. Quality, Diamond Level. Effect, it can permanently improve the physical attack ability of the elves. I didn't expect it to be an energy block that increases physical attack. I really admire my luck. If those master breeders knew that I could easily make such a high-level energy block, I wonder what they would think. Zhang Rui smiled slightly, then picked up the energy block he had made, put it in his mouth and took a bite, and immediately a sweet taste came over him. This is the taste, record it quickly. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Rui hurriedly took out his notebook and wrote down all the secret recipes according to his original memory. After that, Zhang Rui made a lot of energy cubes according to the original recipe, but this time, Zhang Rui did not make it according to the original time and mixing degree, but changed it to different time and mixing degree. It's just that the energy cubes he got were not as high quality as the ones at the beginning. It seems that I was just lucky just now and made diamond quality energy cubes. Then, Zhang Rui made the required energy cubes according to the original time and mixing degree until all the existing tree fruits were used up. Then he put the energy cube making machine back into the system warehouse. It's easy to have a system. When you go on adventures in the wild in the future, you don't have to carry such a heavy backpack. Just thinking about it makes me feel relaxed. After taking back the energy cube making machine, Zhang Rui turned back to the house and wanted to see how the baby dragon was hatching. As soon as he walked into the room, he saw that the baby dragon egg was shaking constantly, as if it was about to be born. Zhang Rui's face was startled, and then slowly turned into an excited look. He hurried over, opened the container containing the elf egg, and took out the baby dragon egg from it. At this time, the cultivation liquid in the container had been absorbed by the baby dragon, which saved a lot of trouble. Zhang Rui put the baby dragon egg he took out on the table and began to stare at the elf egg in front of him. It is said that after the elf is hatched, the first person who sees it will recognize it as the owner. This is also the reason why Zhang Rui stared at it, for fear of any accidents. It would be a pity to miss such a powerful quasi-god elf. Soon, the shaking of the baby dragon egg became more and more intense, until the originally smooth shell cracked. Zhang Rui knew that the baby dragon was about to break out of the shell. Covering up the excitement in his heart, he didn't even dare to blink his eyes, for fear that he would miss the moment when the elf was born. I saw more and more cracks in the eggshell, until a small dragon head stretched out from the eggshell. Roared at the baby dragon, who had just stretched out its head, saw Zhang Rui in front of it and shouted happily a few times. Then, it kept hitting the remaining eggshells with its head until all the eggshells were broken. The baby dragon's whole body was revealed, with a blue body, exposed teeth, and of course, a hard skull. Name, Baby Dragon. Attribute, Dragon. Level, LV5. Quality, D+. Gender, Male. Status, Happy. Features, Hard head. Carried items, none. Inherited moves, Dragon Waves. Basic skills, Rage, Sparks. Taught skills, none. Skill secrets, none. Sure enough, because of the initial damage, the aptitude is very low. But so what? With evolution and nutritional supplements, it will definitely improve in the future. Zhang Rui touched the baby dragon's head and said, although baby dragon's head was very hard, it could still feel Zhang Rui's touch, and its eyes turned into a smiley face. It rubbed Zhang Rui's hand a few times and liked Zhang Rui very much. At this moment, Zhang Rui suddenly thought that the newly born elves must need nutrition, so he took out the prepared energy cube for baby dragon to take. The happy baby dragon saw the energy cube handed over by Zhang Rui, and was a little confused at first, but when he smelled the charming fragrance, he opened his big mouth directly, wanting to swallow the energy cube in one bite. Zhang Rui, who stretched out his hand, saw that the situation was not good, and quickly retracted his hand and touched the undamaged palm. Fortunately, he retracted it quickly, otherwise it would be bitten by baby dragon, and I am afraid that the whole palm would be useless. After baby dragon took the first energy cube, Zhang Rui could see that baby dragon's body was wrapped in a stream of energy, and then gradually dissipated in the body. In other words, the energy cube took effect. Baby dragon's strongest racial stat is physical attack. If he takes physical attack blocks every day, you can imagine how high his physical attack can be. After eating an energy block, baby dragon seemed not full and asked Zhang Rui for more blocks. Zhang Rui did not refuse, of course. He made a lot of energy blocks anyway, so he could eat as many as he wanted. He took out another energy block for baby dragon to take, but this time Zhang Rui did not hand it over, but let baby dragon catch it with his hands. Seeing baby dragon throw the energy block into its mouth with its little hands, Zhang Rui nodded. He stood up and took the pokeball on the container. There are many kinds of pokeballs in this world, but they are all made of round sweet fruit or mixed trees, of course. The most common one was the red and white ball. The main reason was that the price of this ball was very cheap, and it could also restore the injuries of the Pokémon, which was very suitable for ordinary trainers. Zhang Rui took out the red and white ball from the container, pointed the white button at baby dragon, and said gently, "Baby dragon, you will be my Pokémon next, please take care of me in the future. Let's stand at the top of the world together." Baby dragon nodded, and then hit the button of the Pokeball with his head. The Pokeball suddenly opened, emitting a blue light, and took baby dragon into it. Zhang Rui finally experienced the pleasure of conquering Pokémons and was very excited. At this moment, Zhang Rui suddenly heard a voice from the system, "Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for conquering baby dragon and obtaining the qualification to enter the dungeon. Please ask the host whether to enter the dungeon challenge." After conquering the first Pokémon, the dungeon system is finally opened. So, Zhang Rui opened the system panel and saw pictures of dungeons appearing in front of him. However, only the first one is colorful, while the latter is locked by a gray chain. It is estimated that the latter dungeons will be opened after the first dungeon is challenged. The first dungeon challenged Xiaoji, whether the host will challenge it. It's the first time to challenge Xiaoji, and the first level is so difficult. After all, Xiaoji's Pikachu is Pikachu. How can I beat Pikachu? That when Zhang Rui saw the information of the first dungeon, his face was shocked. Does the host challenge it? Zhang Rui looked at the Pokeball in his hand, and then looked at the dungeon in front of him, thinking to himself. High risk, high reward, fight. So, he clicked the button to enter the challenge. I saw something like a black hole appear in front of Zhang Rui, sucking Zhang Rui directly into it. What's going on? But when Zhang Rui woke up, he found that he had come to a strange and familiar place, looking at the small house building in front of him and the Bobo flying freely in the sky. No wonder it looks so familiar. Isn't this Pallet Town? How did I get here? Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just when Zhang Rui was still a little confused, he saw a young boy running out of a house in a hurry. He fell down just after going out, then got up and ran quickly to Zhang Rui. I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late. Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Charmander, any of you will do, you have to wait for me. That the boy kept yelling. Zhang Rui on the side knew the boy in front of him very well. Isn't this our Ash? Since he can see Xiaoji, doesn't that mean that he has entered the dungeon? But Xiaoji hasn't got Pikachu yet, so the challenge will wait until Xiaoji gets Pikachu. Then, Zhang Rui turned and walked towards Professor Oak's institute. After all, new trainers will go to the institute to choose Pokémon. On the way there, he also met Xiao Mao and his army of beautiful women. He should have received all the Pokémons and started the adventure. However, the beauty army is all sweet and beautiful, and with those miniskirts, it is hard to imagine how Xiaomao can bear it alone, so let me share the burden for you. After passing Xiaomao, Zhang Rui finally came to Professor Oak's institute. At this time, many villagers have gathered here, probably to welcome and send off new trainers. As soon as I walked to Professor Oak's institute, I saw Xiaoji coming out with a yellow mouse. This mouse is naturally Pikachu, that's Pikachu. Behind him is Professor Oak. Xiaoji's mother Hanako has prepared Xiaoji's luggage and wants to see Xiaoji off. Zhang Rui naturally walked to Xiaoji and said to him, Xiaoji, do you want to have a Pokemon battle with me? At first, Zhang Rui thought the system asked him to challenge the obedient Pikachu. Now I know that it was the Pikachu who was disobedient at the beginning. For such a disobedient Pokemon, isn't it giving away experience for nothing? Facing Zhang Rui's challenge invitation, everyone hurriedly dissuaded Xiaoji from fighting with Pokemon. After all, Pikachu had not listened to Xiaoji's orders yet, and a premature battle would affect Xiaoji's mentality, but who made Xiaoji very brave? He simply ignored everyone's dissuasion and accepted Zhang Rui's challenge invitation. As a trainer, I will not refuse a challenge. This is my first battle before I set off. I want to make a good start for my future journey. Go! Pikachu! Xiaoji said excitedly, pointing at Zhang Rui in the distance, but Pikachu did not listen to Xiaoji's orders and still stood aside. Name, Pikachu, attribute, electric, level, LV, 520, quality. Gender, male, status, disobedient, features, static electricity, items, none, inherited moves, none, basic skills, 100,000 volts, thunder, lightning flash, high-speed movement. Skills to be taught, none, skill secrets, none. As expected of Pikachu. Even the data I can't detect detailed data. Zhang Rui commented as he took out the Pokeball containing the Dragonite and threw it out. The Dragonite instantly appeared in front of everyone. This is, Dragonite. Just when everyone was confused about Zhang Rui's Pokemon, Professor Oak took the lead. Xiaoji, you should admit defeat. After all, Dragonite is a very strong Pokemon, you can't beat it. After seeing Dragonite, Professor Oak turned his eyes to Xiaoji on the side and persuaded him. No, Professor Oak, I want to be a master Pokemon trainer in the future, and I will not avoid such a battle. Pikachu, use 100,000 volts on Dragonite. Pikachu ignored Xiaoji's voice and turned his head away. Hey, Pikachu, can you just listen to me once? Seeing that Pikachu was disobedient, Xiaoji almost knelt down and kowtowed. Pikachu. Hearing Pikachu's answer, it was obvious that it refused. Since you don't attack first, then I will attack. Dragonite, use Dragon Wave. Dragonite opened its mouth, and a blue dragon-shaped shadow flew out of its mouth, flying towards Pikachu at a very fast speed. Pikachu didn't have time to dodge, and was directly knocked out, hitting the rock behind him heavily. Pikachu. Who hit the rock actually fainted directly, but Zhang Rui saw through the data eye that Pikachu was only slightly injured and would not lose his ability to fight at all. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What an actor. He is so good at acting at the beginning. At this moment, Zhang Rui found that the level of Baby Dragon had been upgraded to level 6. It seems that Pikachu has given him a lot of experience. At this time, Xiaoji hurriedly picked up Pikachu and said with concern, Pikachu, are you okay? Pikachu, who had lost his ability to fight, opened his eyes instantly. Pikachu. Obviously, this boy won this battle. Professor Oak said with his palm facing Zhang Rui. Xiaoji came to Zhang Rui with Pikachu in his arms, lowered his head, and said, I lost this game. Next time, I will definitely defeat you. For this super rookie who refuses to admit defeat, Zhang Rui nodded, and heard the voice from the system, ding dong. Congratulations to the host for clearing the dungeon and getting a copy of the primary experience block recipe and 20,000 elf coins as a reward. Ding dong. The rewards have been distributed to the warehouse, please check them carefully. Experience block recipe. What is that? But it feels great to be given 20,000 elf coins. That while Zhang Rui was thinking, he saw a black hole suddenly appear behind him. Zhang Rui knew that he was going to leave the dungeon. When Zhang Rui opened his eyes again, he had returned home. He quickly opened the data panel to check the progress of the dungeon. As soon as he entered, he saw that the first dungeon had been cleared, and the second dungeon was also opened. The second dungeon, challenged the samurai boy. Zhang Rui was naturally familiar with the samurai boy. Wasn't this the samurai boy that Xiaoji challenged in the evergreen forest? But the level was very low, so he should be able to beat it. At this moment, Zhang Rui suddenly had two questions and asked the system. System, can I challenge the level I have cleared again? Faced with Zhang Rui's inquiry, the system naturally gave a satisfactory answer. Ding dong. The level that the host defeated can be challenged again. The condition is to pass the Quartz Alliance. In addition, the reward for repeated challenge of the level is halved. At this time, Zhang Rui asked another question again. Can the elves in the level be conquered? The elves in the level can be conquered. Hearing the system's answer, Zhang Rui was also very surprised. Next time he enters the dungeon, he will not challenge the mission target first. After wandering around, he will come back to challenge. This feels really good. Excited, Zhang Rui opened the warehouse button. After all, he was very curious about the recipe of the experience block. What is the use? Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Take out the recipe for making experience blocks from the warehouse and read it carefully. After reading it, Zhang Rui realized the magic of this recipe. This is something that has never appeared in the elf world, that is the experience block, which is also made of tree fruit, but is it effective? It will not increase the elves' abilities in all aspects, but it will increase the elves' experience and allow the elves to upgrade quickly. With such a recipe, who would spend time to train the elves? Just give him experience blocks directly, which will not only make the elves feel full, but also increase the elves' levels. It's killing two birds with one stone. It's worthy of being a level reward. It's really practical. The rewards for the first level are already very practical, so what about the next one? This made Zhang Rui feel more and more happy the more he thought about it, and he wanted to challenge the second level quickly, but Zhang Rui suddenly thought that the level of the baby dragon was too low now, so he should buy the tree fruits for making energy blocks first, upgrade the level of the baby dragon, and then challenge the second level. Just as Zhang Rui walked out of the door, he saw that Zhang's mother had already prepared dinner and was about to call Zhang Rui to eat. At this time, Zhang Rui was a little confused. He had just entered a copy and it was already evening. Originally planning to go out to buy tree fruits, it seems that he can only wait until tomorrow to buy them. Stinky boy, you just came back. What were you doing just now? I called you but you didn't answer. Come and eat quickly. Zhang's mother yelled at Zhang Rui after seeing him. After that, she turned back to the dining table, and Zhang Rui also sat at the dining table and started to eat. After all, he had eaten a bowl of millet porridge and was really hungry. Although there were energy blocks, it seemed that people had no use for eating them. Only when the elves ate them would they have an effect. Before starting to eat, Zhang Rui released the baby dragon. At the first sight of the baby dragon, Zhang's mother and Zhang's father were stunned. They still knew the elves in front of them very well. Unexpectedly, their son actually picked out the quasi-god spirit egg, which was really a great honor to the family. Now Zhang's father wanted to go to the Zhang family's ancestral grave to see if there was smoke coming out. At the same time, Zhang's father and Zhang's mother also liked the new member of the family very much, but Zhang's father wanted to touch it, and was directly punished by Zhang's mother to kneel on the durian. Zhang's father was crying without tears. Doesn't he have any status at home? Seeing that the family liked the baby dragon so much, Zhang Rui was also very happy. On the third day, Zhang Rui had bought all the fruits for making experience cubes. When preparing to start making experience cubes, the baby dragon was already eating the spirit food bought by Zhang's mother from outside, and was eating happily, and Zhang Rui took out the energy cube making machine and prepared to make energy cubes. Because the experience cube formula was very detailed, Zhang Rui's first production was very successful. Looking at the small light blue cube in his hand, Zhang Rui couldn't believe that such a small one could provide experience for the elves. Looking at the baby dragon in the distance, he waved his hand and asked the baby dragon to come over. Baby dragon certainly obeyed the master's request. As soon as he saw Zhang Rui's gesture, he ran to Zhang Rui at a very fast speed. Looking at the cute baby dragon in front of him, Zhang Rui put the experience block in his hand in the baby dragon's hand and let it take it. I saw the baby dragon put the experience block in front of him and smelled it, and then swallowed it in one bite. Zhang Rui looked at the baby dragon's status through the data eye and found that its level had risen from level 6 to level 10, and it also learned a new skill. Biting. I didn't expect that this energy block could actually provide experience for the elves. And the experience provided is not small, at least it can avoid multiple battles. Besides, this is still the lowest level. If it is a high-level experience block, I am afraid that one block can make the initial 3 families evolve. Zhang Rui looked at the baby dragon whose level was upgraded and expressed his thoughts. At the same time, looking at the full of fruits on the table, Zhang Rui continued to make experience cubes. It is estimated that after using up the fruits in front of him, it may at least allow baby dragon to evolve. The main reason is that the racial value of quasi-gods is relatively weak before evolution, and the level of evolution is very high. Charmander can evolve into Charmeleon at level 16, while baby dragon needs to reach level 30, not to mention the higher level flying dragon. Soon, Zhang Rui used up all the fruits and made a full bottle of experience cubes. In order to improve baby dragon's strength, Zhang Rui took out a large number of experience cubes and let baby dragon take them, but for some reason, when baby dragon ate the 5th one, he felt full and could not take it anymore. Of course, Zhang Rui did not let it continue to take it. After all, it takes time to improve strength. If it eats all, it may have a counter effect. However, after eating the 5th experience block, the level of baby dragon has also been raised to level 17, which should be more than enough to pass the next level. After putting the energy block manufacturing machine and experience blocks into the warehouse, Zhang Rui put baby dragon into the Pokeball, back in the room, open the system panel, select the second copy, challenge the samurai boy, click OK, and enter the copy. At this time, Zhang Rui is in the evergreen forest, looking at the forest with trees in front of him and the insect Pokemons everywhere. Zhang Rui is full of joy and is about to find Pokemons with high-quality qualifications and capture them as his own Pokemons, but in the end, he found out that he didn't buy Pokeballs. This is troublesome. He actually wasted an opportunity to capture Pokemons with excellent qualifications. At this time, the system seemed to sense Zhang Rui's mood and spoke. The host can collect the elves into the small world, and then capture them after having the elf ball. After receiving the system prompt, Zhang Rui realized that he still had the small world given by the system that he had not used. He opened the system panel and clicked the small world button. The environment around Zhang Rui was changing rapidly until it was pitch black. At this moment, Zhang Rui found a white light spot in front of him and touched it with his hand. At the moment of touching, the originally dark environment around him began to change, and green grass appeared. Seeing the scene in front of him, Zhang Rui couldn't help but feel happy. This world can actually change freely with his consciousness, which means that he can have whatever he wants. So, Zhang Rui made a major transformation of the world in front of him. Arranging all the forests and rivers. Of course, there are also blue sky, white clouds, sun, moon, and stars. The environment inside is almost exactly the same as the original world. Zhang Rui also wanted to create some elves, but found that except for elves and some living creatures that can move freely, everything else can be created. Zhang Rui had no choice but to give up, but before leaving, he created a large area of fruit trees. Originally, he had the mentality of trying, but he didn't expect that he would succeed. With a large area of fruit trees, he no longer needs to buy fruit from trees, and can directly pick them in the small world. Now that the small world has been roughly created, he can look for high-quality elves in the evergreen forest. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning to the evergreen forest, Zhang Rui wandered around in the forest, hoping to find good quality Pokemon there. However, most of the Pokemon in the evergreen forest are bug-type Pokemon. Of course, there are other Pokemon, but they are all relatively rare. Soon, Zhang Rui came to a giant tree and saw a large patch of green pupae under the tree. Just by looking at it, you can tell what the pupae in front of you are. Isn't it the very common metal chrysalis? However, since you are here, you naturally have to evaluate each metal chrysalis. After a complete survey by the data eye, it was found that none of them broke through the SS level, and there was not even an S level one, but an A-level metal chrysalis was found. If it were outside, the price of an A-level metal chrysalis would be at least 1 million. But Zhang Rui thought that the metal chrysalis would evolve into Butterfree, and the quality would be improved, so he put this A-level metal chrysalis into the small world. Zhang Rui naturally chose to skip the rest of the metal chrysalis and continue to look for other Pokémon. Of course, in addition to the ironclad pupa, there is also the iron shell pupa, which is not far from the ironclad pupa. Zhang Rui walked a few steps to get there, and of course, he treated the iron shell pupa the same way as the ironclad pupa. However, Zhang Rui's luck was really good, and he found an iron shell pupa of S-grade quality among them. He was very excited and ran over at a fast speed, picked up the iron shell pupa and put it into the small world, but it was because of Zhang Rui's actions that the iron shell pupa around him actually emitted white light. Zhang Rui immediately knew that it was not good. This was obviously the light of evolution. If the iron shell pupa evolved into a giant bee, one was okay, but if there were many, it would be troublesome. After all, the character of the giant bee is a very ferocious elf, and it is also a social elf. As long as it sees someone invading its territory, it will attack this person, but Zhang Rui naturally did not choose to run away. He was not a super newcomer. He could just run away when he encountered danger. Anyway, they couldn't catch up with him, and Zhang Rui ran away. How could 2 legs be better than wings? The most urgent thing was that Zhang Rui immediately released the baby dragon. The level of these iron shell pupae after evolution was very low, and they evolved after being startled, so their qualifications would definitely not be too high. Zhang Rui was sure to win against these evolved giant bees, and he could also upgrade the level of the baby dragon. After all the iron shell pupae evolved into giant bees with black and yellow stripes, they spit out a large number of fine needles at Zhang Rui. Zhang Rui directly asked the baby dragon to use the dragon wave to knock down all the fine needles in front of it. Buzz. Obviously, the attack of the baby dragon just now made the giant bee even more angry, and it waved its 2 needles to attack the baby dragon. Baby dragon, use sparks. Zhang Rui ordered calmly. The level of these giant bees was too low, and any move could make it lose its combat ability. Baby dragon saw that the swarm of beedrills was getting closer and closer to him, and a hot flame appeared in his mouth. Just when the beedrills came in front of him, a series of small flames hit those beedrills, and the damage of the flames was indeed very harmful to the bug-type Pokémon. After the beedrills ate baby dragon's full attack, they all fell to the ground and lost their combat ability. Seeing the large group of beedrills in front of him lose their combat ability, baby dragon's level also improved. From level 17 to level 18, Zhang Rui was naturally very happy that baby dragon's strength had improved, and he took out the physical attack block he made from his body and let baby dragon eat it. This is a reward for the victory in the battle just now. Roar. Baby dragon was also very excited to take the physical attack block handed over by Zhang Rui, and he could eat such a delicious block again. After baby dragon finished eating the physical attack block, Zhang Rui took it to continue exploring the forest. In this densely wooded evergreen forest, in addition to bug-type Pokémon, there are also flying Pokémon, but compared with the bug-type, it is a little difficult to deal with. The main reason is that Dragonite can't fly. It can only deal with those Pidgeots through long-range attacks. Fortunately, the level is high enough, and when it sees a very qualified Pokémon, it can take them down with one move. Because the evergreen forest is too big, it is impossible for Zhang Rui to search the entire forest, and just explore it a little. So, Zhang Rui thought about challenging the warrior boy after taming the last S-quality Rattata. Just when Dragonite forced Rattata into a desperate situation and killed it. Instantly, he actually saw Xiaoji and the warrior boy challenging in the distance, and the orange-haired girl standing between the two. Isn't that Xiaoxia? It seems that the plot of the dungeon is strictly based on the anime, but I don't know if the dungeon has Xiaoxia's reward. When the time comes, the dungeon will be all the beauties in the book were brought into the small world. Those who know the following plots should know them, that I don't know if Zhang Rui's thoughts were heard by the system. I only heard the system answering Zhang Rui. The host's proposal will be considered by the system and may be implemented later. Hearing the system's answer, Zhang Rui was immediately excited. This system is too humane. I like it." Then, Zhang Rui looked at the battle in the distance. At this time, they were competing to see whose metal pupa could last longer and whose was harder. Get harder. In the end, both of them fell to the ground, their bodies stiff. Zhang Rui wanted to laugh when he saw the two fools. The scene in front of him made Zhang Rui think of the following plot. It seemed that a group of giant bees would arrive, causing the battle between the two to be forced to end. In order to prevent this from happening, Zhang Rui roughly calculated the direction where the giant bees might appear, and ran over quickly with Baby Dragon. Sure enough, a group of giant bees were seen coming out in full force, but the number was much less than in the anime. At this time, Zhang Rui suddenly thought that perhaps because of the collection of iron shell pupae just now, the number of giant hornets has decreased. However, as the opponent of Baby Dragon, these giant hornets may be able to improve their strength. Use sparks on the giant hornets in front of you. Baby Dragon opened his mouth and spit out small flames from his mouth. Although the flames were very small, the amount was large and sufficient. The small flames swept across the giant hornets in front of him, from left to right. Almost all the giant hornets were hit by the sparks and their bodies were burned black. After such a powerful attack, the giant hornets all turned around and fled. As long as they were not stupid, they would not stay here to be attacked by flames. After seeing many giant hornets leave, Zhang Rui just wanted to turn around to challenge the warrior boy, but he saw that one of the giant hornets actually wanted to attack Zhang Rui. If you look closely, you will find that the flames just now only caused little damage to it.